What's up everyone, Will here. I've got a special guest with me. I guess he's not much of a guest since I've been out on a number of trips with him now. But this is Devin from Backcountry Exposure.
Hello everyone.
I'm sure most of you recognize him right away. We have just finished up trip in Capitol Reef here, just hanging out at the trailhead. And I thought it'd be a great idea for Devin, being a certified wilderness responder, to have a look at my first aid kit, which seems kind of a little bulky here, but we're gonna go through it and kind of dissect it and see.
Put him to the test.
Yeah, we're gonna see if I'm overdoing it or doing something really well here for preparedness. So,
Ziploc City in there.
yeah. So I've got mine broken up into 3 compartments, 3 different Ziplocs.
Okay.
So
let me just be transparent here. I am a certified wilderness first responder, but I'm not an expert in first aid. My opinion is based around the education that I've received as a woofer.
This is also just going to be to quiz him. We're going to have some fun and kind of quiz Devin and see how quick he is with his knowledge with each item. So first off, I've got a blister kit here, a little medication bag for various medications, and then this is what I call my wound care kit here. So we'll start off with the blister, start with the simplest. I'll identify it, Devin will say what it's good for. So right here we got a sheet of moleskin.
You're gonna use moleskin to prep the area around a blister that is forming or already formed, to give it some padding and so that the fluid-filled blister has some space to be protected.
Got a safety pin in here.
You're gonna hopefully be able to, if necessary, drain a blister using the safety pin.
An alcohol swab.
Gotta clean and prep the skin, prevent infection.
Yep, and for the safety pin, disinfect that, make sure it's sterile. Some little KT blister strips or hot spot strips.
These work really well for preventing, or once you are starting to get a hot spot, or if you know you're prone to specific spots getting blisters, you can use those as a barrier to create that friction or prevent that friction from happening.
And we have the same thing, just in a bigger version, just a typical standard strip of KT tape. So
yeah, and the nice thing about KT tape and those big strips is it's a really nice adhesive. It handles sweat really well, and it's very sticky compared to just using like a fabric tape that's pretty common that you might wrap an ankle or something with.
I also usually have a little sheet of Leukotape strips in here. We ended up using some of that on this trip already. So
on me.
So Devin had his first experience with Leukotape this trip, and are you sold on it?
Yeah, I liked it. It was nice, and it's different enough from the KT tape that you could carry both of them, depending on what the application is. It's a good blister kit.
Okay.
The only thing I might add is maybe some second skin.
Right.
You can get those in like little rectangle blocks that you cut them out, and they keep the blister moist. So. And
also something else that reminds me that I let him use too, because of his blister issues, was I also had a sheet of or a special blister bandage that Band-Aid makes.
Yeah, those are nice.
That we used with one of his blisters. He had one too, I think, but we were just trying to stretch him out. So that's nice to have a couple of those on you as well in a blister kit. So, and I know a lot of thru hikers, that and a couple Band-Aids would be sufficient for their first aid kit. But here's the deal with this first aid kit versus what like a thru hiker might carry, certain thru hikers, is if you're on something like the Appalachian Trail, where it's a very well established trail and not a lot of remoteness in between. I understand it's a high traffic trail, lots of people around, lots of trail towns in between, different stretches of the trail, and just the overall grade of the trail. You could probably get by with something simple like a blister kit and some band-aids and a few meds, like what we'll get into here in a minute. But things like what Devin and I do a lot of out here in like the desert and Capitol Reef and up in the mountains occasionally, we do a lot of cross-country off-trail scrambling, and we can get ourselves into much more rugged terrain where there's much greater chance of slipping and falling and slicing yourself on a sharp rock, or puncturing, getting a puncture wound on a sharp stick sticking out somewhere.
Your hand onto a cactus if you trip.
So we're gonna dive into a wound care kit here real quick and have a look what we got in here. So right here, gloves. I've got, I think they're either latex or the other kind of glove, but yeah, medical grade gloves.
Which, like, I think gloves are important if you find yourself potentially working on other people. Right. I think as a personal kit where you would only ever do stuff on yourself, gloves are not as necessary.
But definitely if you're with a partner or a group and you feel qualified to help treat or assist someone with a wound, definitely good to have these in your kit. Do we start with little to big or big to little? Let's go with this.
Nice.
Little irrigation syringe.
So this is something that if you do get any kind of laceration or deep cut or even just like a scrape, you slide down a rock and get your elbow or whatever, irrigation, 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 and that's going to prevent infection more than anything else. Just a nice clean wound is going to have less chance of getting infected.
Okay. This is something I don't know if I ever need to use out here in Utah, but I do carry it. I definitely wouldn't need it down here, but yes, it's a tick twister tool. I think that's self-explanatory. Yeah. It's just there to remove ticks, but we do have ticks in our mountains. We don't have much of an issue. It's really rare for anyone to contract something like Lyme disease. Thankfully, it's not really prevalent out here in the Intermountain West, but you can get Rocky Mountain spotted fever. That's another disease that some of these mountain ticks can carry.
Fun fact, I've never had a tick on me.
Neither have I, to my knowledge. But we do have Devin has a friend that shared a picture of picking up a tick in the Uinta Mountains in the lower ends of it. So they are out there. So, all right, so let's dive into this little bag here. It's kind of a little accessory bag. Here I do have a roll of Leuco tape. Nice. That I can cut to size as needed. It's just wrapped around a little hard red plastic straw I cut up. So, do you have any ideas? So Devin's not a Leuco tape guy yet, but we may have converted him on this trip. So this comes from an idea, this is kind of redundant for me to have this given the other stuff we're going to look at, but if you've watched Darwin on the trail and some of his videos, he mentions that he'll actually fashion band-aids and gauze out of like toilet paper and then use the Leuco tape over the top of that, you know, and maybe a little ointment with it or something. So tweezers,
safety pin,
and another safety pin. So
it's a little redundant.
Yeah.
It'll save you half a gram.
So tweezers, not necessarily for ticks, but maybe splinters or things like that.
Yeah, pulling little thorns out. Or like Russian olive and stuff that you got down in these canyons.
Yep. The safety pins, I agree, probably redundant given I already have one in my blister kit. I guess I was thinking with the safety pins, my thought was to, you know, if you need to like wrap up a splint and hold something together on a splint.
Let's say I dislocated my shoulder or something and I couldn't get it back in place, then I can use a shirt to like a swath and swaddle to like hold your arm in place, and you would use safety pins to help like keep all that together. That's kind of an extreme example. But
yeah, a little extra roll of gauze to fill out the bottom of this little Ziploc. Here's a wound dressing.
Okay.
So that would be just like just a sterile cover for a bigger,
adhesive around it?
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Bigger open wound.
That'll work.
Yeah, tell me where I'm redundant on some of this stuff. I've got a waterproof transparent dressing here. What would that be for?
These are awesome if you've got like steri strips, which I wonder if you do have steri strips in there.
Yeah.
But you can, as long as you can close a deep cut or something, use steri strips to keep it closed, and then using some like benzoin tincture to help make the skin really tacky and sticky. You put this over top of it, and that's going to allow the wound to breathe, but it will keep it from getting any kind of infection. So you could go like at least a week or so with one of these over a pretty gnarly cut, and it will help prevent infection and keep things all nice and tidy.
Okay. Here's where I probably am redundant. I've actually got two of these, two different brands. So this is
I carry two.
3M brand.
Yeah.
Okay.
I've got enough in my kit for steri strips for 2 pretty deep cuts and then 2.
Okay. Now, speaking of 3M and steri strips, I do have these 3M brand steri strips here.
Nice.
So
good deal.
Okay. Triple layer non-stick pad, probably just a little gauze pad in right there.
Pretty standard.
Multi-use. So what I know of gauze, you can use it to kind of help clean out or scrub off a wound with a little bit of soap and water, kind of blot dry it after you've irrigated it out. You could also use another clean one as a bandage or a wound cover for a small wound or small scrape. So I carry about 3 or 4 of these, it looks like. Yep. All right, getting down to the small stuff here.
Band-Aids.
So these, everyone knows what to do with most of these, right? Just basic Band-Aids. Probably a little redundant on some of them, but they're so light that, I go, of all the things in this kit, you're gonna go through Band-Aids along with blister stuff more often than anything else, probably. Yep. And so I just, put enough in there that I think will get me through the year and just not worry about it the rest of the year, even though I will review it periodically. So got a couple butterflies and just other various sizes in there. And then antiseptic towelette, just some little,
clean things off.
Little cleaning wipes. Insect sting relief, I think that's self-explanatory. Triple antibiotic ointment, just a little packet of that. I had a couple, I used one yesterday for a little scrape that I had. Everyone knows what ointment is, I think, so I won't spend time on that. First aid burn cream, so if you get a real bad sunburn, I guess this might...
More common is you might pour a little bit of boiling water over your finger or something.
Yeah, so if you touch a hot pot and it, swells up a little bit or gets stingy, that might help aid with some burn relief there. That's probably the most likely thing, is you accidentally touch a flame on your lighter, your stove, or grab your pot when it's too hot.
Yep.
Or like Devin said, spill some boiling water on yourself. Got a couple packets of anti-itch cream. We have encountered poison ivy, but to our knowledge, back in our Death Hollow trip last year, neither of us seem to be affected by poison ivy. I guess there's a certain percentage of the population that is somewhat immune or doesn't have that allergic reaction, but there's a good segment of population that is allergic to poison ivy, and hence the irritation and itching that can come with that and the rashes. But also, that could also help with like bug bites as well. What do you think of the wound care kit?
Probably a little bit more than you would need for a weekend trip, but I think that all comes down to like personal preference and what makes you feel good. And that's important with the first aid kit, is like, you'll see some people say, oh, all you need is a couple Band-Aids, some ibuprofen, and a like roll of Leukotape. Like, if that works for you, cool, but it's all what makes you feel good about being out there.
And yeah, exactly. And like I said, you know, if I was doing a very well-traveled, well-maintained trail, doesn't have much risk of yeah, slipping and falling on a bad rock or sharp stick and, you know, gouging yourself somehow, I definitely would probably scale down a lot of that wind stuff down to just basic band-aids and gauze pads, and, you know, might still keep the irrigation syringe in there. But yeah, I wouldn't worry too much about deep cuts and lacerations and stuff that, you know. All right, lastly, we'll take a look at just some of the medication. I carry some over-the-counter stuff. So we got the classic ibuprofen, that's the most common. Everyone knows what ibuprofen is for, vitamin I. This is what a lot of hikers and backpackers will call it. Related to that, I carry a few Aleve tablets. This is a lot like ibuprofen, a little slower to work, but also longer lasting. You can take just a single one of these tablets for about 12 hours is what it's labeled for.
It's still an NSAID.
Yes, so it's still an anti-inflammatory, and so if I need something for quicker relief, I will go with the ibuprofen. But if it's something that I'm trying to prevent, like maybe I've had a sore spot going into the trip, it's, you know, it might be a good idea to take one of these in the morning with breakfast and then forget about it, and then you can just go the rest of the day and hopefully rely on that to help ward off additional inflammation on anything. Bismuth, basically Pepto-Bismol type tablets.
Nice.
You want to go for that?
Heartburn, indigestion.
Multi-use, yeah. Heartburn, indigestion.
Whatever that song is.
Upset stomach.
Yeah. Or for some people to make you puke.
Now, related to me, you know, I don't know if this is TMI, but I have something called a hiatal hernia, which I get occasionally a lot of acid reflux from. And so I carry some additional antacid medicines with mine.
Like Tums and stuff?
So I've got, yeah, like a famotidine. It's like a acid reducer type medication over the counter. This is basically like a Pepsid AC generic. And then, yeah, some like Tums type tablets. Aspirin.
If you got heart problems,
yeah. So the only reason I carry these is in case I happen to encounter someone else that appears to be having a heart attack and all the signs and symptoms are there. It might not hurt, you know, with their permission to offer them some aspirin and hopefully buy them some time while, if they don't have a satellite communicator, I'll jump in on my inReach and signal for help for them. So that's just kind of something to carry on the side for in case it's useful for someone else.
Yeah, it's great to have.
So some Benadryl tablets.
Anti-inflammatory, not an anti-inflammatory, antihistamine.
Yeah, antihistamine, yeah.
For bug bites or reactions to maybe allergies that you might have.
All right. Winding down here, some acetaminophen. However you say it. It's basically generic Tylenol. I think everyone knows what that is. That's another just pain reliever. You can actually overlap that with ibuprofen if you've got something that's really, really bothering you.
You can take them at the same time.
Yeah, and I've had to do that with a toothache once.
Yeah.
All right. I think this is critical for most people to have on a backup, like Imodium.
Good old Imodium.
Yeah.
Save the day.
Anti-diarrheal. Nothing needs to be said further about that, right? All right. I also carry just a few little cough drops. In fact, last time I was down here in Halls Creek, my last day out, I actually started feeling a cold come on and I had quite a sore throat. So I was thankful to have some cough drops in my kit for that, just to soothe my throat. And then lastly, let's carry this little pouch of Pedialyte electrolyte powder. I could also do Noon tablets. There's various other electrolyte bands. While I carry some of that with my like regular food kit for drinks and stuff through the day when I'm really gonna encounter a long hot stretch of the day, I like to have this as a backup, just in case there's some severe dehydration and I've used up my other tablets, or and you know, not just dehydrated from exposure to the weather and the environmental conditions, but in case you have something messed up with your gastrointestinal system and you've got stuff coming out either end, that puts you at severe risk of dehydration as well. So I feel like this is probably worth its weight to have in your kit, just as a emergency backup for dehydration prevention. So
nice, man.
So that'll do it for a deep look into my kit here.
Yeah, I think it's a good kit. There's probably a few more things like total, like in quantity, than you would need for like a weekend trip. And again, that comes down to personal preference, what makes you feel good. I carry less Band-Aids and gauze and that kind of stuff, but you never know what could happen down there, and those are the choices that you make when you put together a kit.
Yep. And I've thought about maybe, you know, I could do away with some of this wound stuff and just rip a shirt or a bandana and just really like tighten it down and just rely on the inReach and wait for a rescue helicopter in the event of a deep wound. And so that's something that I'm struggling with, is like, do I want to carry a 7-8 ounce kit, or do I want to pare it down to, you know, 4 or 5 ounce kit, you know? So but let's just let you guys know what the options are and give you some ideas for, you know, how big or how little you can. And I still think this is, you know, what I would call a medium weight kit, because some people out there will carry the whole kitchen sink when it comes to, you know, first aid kits. They'll go buy one of those big, huge, heavy store kits. So anyways, that's gonna wrap it up, and you know, let me know what you guys think of the kit in the comments down below, what you would leave out if it were you, and anything you might add in place of something else, if you have some other ideas. So we'll see you on the next one. Subscribe if you haven't, if you like seeing more videos like this, and give it a thumbs up if you found it informative. We'll see you on the next one, guys. Thanks for watching.